Hi, and a big welcome to Raw Politique, where we will deliver an unvarnished and raw assessment of international politics. We've some fantastic guests on today's show, including 2024 presidential candidate Dr. Jill Stein, plus American international lawyer and activist Laura Alborno. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also be joined by the hugely respected academic Professor Susan Akram, where we'll be talking about the legal ramifications of the ICJ judgment. Now, there can be only one place to start, and that's with my nomination of International Woman of the Year. Of course, I'm biased, the unstoppable and tenacious Rahma Zain. So, Rahma, I'm really looking forward to doing this show with you.
Not more than me, really. Like as a mother, as a woman of law, and as a fighter, I'm really excited for this.
Our next guest is something of a legend in US politics. She's also a physician, activist, environmentalist, and if that wasn't enough, the 2024 presidential candidate for the Green Party. This will be her third presidential candidacy, having also run in 2012 and 2016. She is, of course, the inspirational Dr. Jill Stein. Jill, thanks so much for joining us on the Raw Politique show. So recently you've been saying something so important, which is we need to end endless wars and create a new foreign policy based on diplomacy, international law, and human rights to oppose violence, occupation, and apartheid. There's a lot in that statement. I wonder if you could break it down for us.
So the crisis of the hour really is the genocide that Israel is conducting on Gaza. And the United States is partnering in this and enabling it. It is a world-changing crisis in and of itself, and it is part of a larger system. It's really a microcosm of an empire that has run amok and that has gotten more and more powerful, more and more weaponry at the same time that the world order is shifting. So we're in a very unstable and dangerous time. And I'll just say from the point of view of, of the empire and the United States, which is really driving this, enabling this crisis and driving the wider crisis. This is impoverishing and endangering all of us in this country and around the world. So it is it's a crisis on so many dimensions. The uplifting thing is that so many people are waking up and are standing up. And it's really critical. And I think it's very important. The most important thing here is for us to understand that at the end of the day, humanity is prevailing and it will prevail. And we must stand up with all the courage of our convictions and understand it's not just Gaza, it's not just Palestine, it's also the lives of Israelis, the lives of everyone in the Middle East, and fundamentally the lives of everyone around the world that are hanging in the balance and at risk here. So we've got to stand up for what's right and just for all of us.
How we act now is going to shape our future. And if we don't act now, what's happening in Gaza is going to become the norm all over the world. If we let it pass now, what prevents it from happening anywhere else?
There is a very real possibility that this could spiral out of control. This is a World War I in the makings. Israel is a nuclear power. Israel is now seriously threatening Iran. They're not bombing Iran at the moment, but they're bombing Iranians and, Yemen and Iraq and Syria. And Iraq is now linked with Russia in a mutual defense treaty, which very few people even know about because it wasn't even covered here in the US of A. So this is potentially a nuclear crisis, and our clueless misleaders are really pushing the envelope on this crisis and could easily push us over the brink.
How short-sighted is Biden in this?
Whether Biden is in possession of his faculties at all. He was just deemed basically legally incompetent to stand trial on the mishandling and the sharing of highly confidential, secret security documents after his vice presidency. If he's not competent to handle documents, how is he competent to have his finger on the button, on the nuclear button, and to be conducting very critically important and nuanced and fragile negotiations among the world's powers? And I think this is one of the things that has so given a sense of urgency to the people who are informed about this crisis and who are standing up. And I do want to just mention quickly, people shouldn't wait until the election. I mean, it's very important in the election for people to stand up for the direction forward that we can survive in, that we can live in, that we can thrive in. But we can't wait until the election. And we're encouraging people to go to our website and sign a pledge to stop genocide. And it's a pledge that not only will we withhold our votes from the practitioners of genocide, and that's both major parties. It's Joe Biden, it's also Donald Trump, it's RFK, it's the No Labels Party. It's the corporate business as usual politics in America. We must withhold our votes, and we must affirm now to give our votes only to those candidates who are standing up to stop genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Jill, we're talking about Biden's faculties, but I'm wondering, how much of it is really about Biden? Like, are you up against Trump and Biden, or are you up against the weapons lobby and the Zionist lobby?
They're indistinguishable, all of them. They are of a piece. They are a team. It is the financial power of the war profiteer lobby, which is huge unto itself, as well as the Israel lobby. And, it's an absolute disgrace that this is the driving force of our foreign policy, in the same way that, that fossil fuels are largely, and nuclear, are the driving force in our energy policy, that health insurance companies are the driving force in our healthcare policy. This is why this problem cannot be fixed simply by fiddling around the margins or by window dressing. It's really time for a peaceful political revolution, as it has been for quite some time. And the Bernie Sanders campaign came close to that, but then they threw in the towel, and he is just too much part of the system to actually change the system. Although, he's asserting some integrity in the process right now, which is great to see. But we really need a system we can survive in and that fixes all of these problems, because, we are multidimensional people. We're like the patient in the intensive care unit whose heart is failing, who's on dialysis, whose kidneys aren't working, who's in a coma and their brain isn't working. You can't just pick one organ system and fix it. You have to treat the whole person. And in the same way, we need to treat the whole body politic right now and just get down to business here and fix it. And this is a great time to be doing that.
Jill, are Americans ready for something new other than a two-party system, or are they going to go with what they're so used to?
The two major parties have done such a terrible job of representing the American people that it's time for an independent political party. We see now polls showing 20% of African Americans and 20% of Hispanics have vowed, even at this early point, that they are not going to vote either Democratic or Republican. In fact, you have among Hispanics greater support right now for Donald Trump than for Joe Biden. So the old propaganda that you have to vote for the so-called lesser evil doesn't hold. Among youth, it's 21% who've said they're, just out of the starting gate, they are not voting Democrat or Republican. And that's even still amidst this media blackout, where they have not yet been able to hear about their options. But I will say that the news it's out there and it is spreading on social media. We just saw a poll that said we are at 5% now among the American public. And that's just about an all-time high for us. And that's really wonderful that that's happening prior to basically any media coverage whatsoever, and then you have the Abandon Biden movement among the Arab American and Muslim communities. And that community is just operating, I think, with greater conviction and moral fortitude than anyone, because because of the genocide that's taking place in their community. So it's a huge wake-up moment. You have 44 million Americans who are locked into student debt, young people and not so young people, for whom there is no way out. It's as perfect a storm as possible for political transformation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I remember when Ralph Nader was running and we were so excited. And I think that we are fundamentally at a different point in history. But Jill, I just wonder, we were talking, Rahma and I, about this before. So you see a huge, solidarity movement. You see a lot of people that are standing up for issues that matter. But then you see a genocide that's taking place in the year 2024. So there's a sense of dissonance, I think, from what we're seeing on the street versus what we're seeing, in reality. So sometimes I wonder, are we in this echo chamber where we think that things are changing, but actually the shift in power is going to take so long? I just love to hear from you. How realistic is it for us to see things change, within our lifetime?
Yeah, and I think you have to attach that question to a related question, which is how realistic is it to think that we are going to survive as the Colorado River is drying up? The Washington Post, which is not given to exaggeration, ran a headline last year saying that it's the doomsday scenario now for the Colorado River, which supplies half of the fruits and vegetables for the United States. We're looking at heat waves that are just off the charts. We're looking at accelerated melting of major ice sheets and the potential breakup of the so-called Thwaites Glacier, which is an ice sheet that scientists and environmentalists are carefully following because it holds 2 feet of sea level, and it's about to lose its shelf, which is the break on the ice sheet. So the ice sheet can slide into the ocean when it loses its break. And, scientists are extremely worried. So, and then you have the nuclear weapons that are just out of the bag right now. So how realistic is it that we can go on like this from year to year? It's not very realistic, and there is a crushing inequality right now, and 63% approximately of working people are living from paycheck to paycheck. So they don't feel like they can go on either. So we have kind of this balance of crisis right now. And the question is, will democracy prevail? And, or are people just going to roll over on the railroad tracks? And, to look at the sentiments that are out there, people are fighting angry and are standing up. And, I think we have to just push the envelope, with all the courage of our convictions and get to a place, to a world and to an America that works for all of us.
There's no choice. There's no choice anymore.
I keep seeing this analogous to the formation of the 13 colonies in the U.S., which were sort of independent and going their own way. Not that this is a model system by any means. It had its major elements of genocide going on as well. But in terms of like disparate pieces that eventually came together to see themselves as one nation. We're sort of undergoing that transition right now, globally. Like, when was it? In the 1970s, when suddenly you had the vision of Earth as this little amazing blue ball from space. You could see Earth. My God, it's one place. It shares an atmosphere. It shares oceans. It also shares humanity that flows around the Earth, and that always has, from the first moments of primate evolution. Humanity has also moved across borders. So our borders, to some extent, don't make sense anymore, and we're trying to figure out, who are we? Who are we as nations, and who are we as humanity? And it's just so important that we keep raising the bar to act on our higher vision of who we can be and who we must be.
Speaking of threats to democracy, people are starting to accuse AIPAC, or people do accuse AIPAC, of having this chokehold over U.S. democracy. I remember I saw one clip of one U.S. politician who was very, very adamantly protecting, stating that it's totally anti-Semitic to talk against the occupation. And the woman that he was saying this to looked at him blank in the face and told him, "I'm Jewish." And he continued with that same narrative because, and then later it was found out that he's being dictated by APEC. So how would you then deal with such a powerful entity?
And that's where the power of democracy comes in, because AIPAC, is ruling the day in Congress, as they have for, really forever. And the American people are no longer believing this propaganda and are really alarmed and alerted to the danger of the moment and of the hour. So, AIPAC should be classified as a foreign agent in the way that John JFK had tried to do that shortly before he was assassinated. He was trying to classify AIPAC in a way that its hands would basically be tied and it couldn't bribe and manipulate Congress. At the end of the day, I think the rules of the game need to be changed. And not just for AIPAC, but also for the health insurance industry and the war profiteers and across the board, the private prison industry, you name it. There was a study done out of Princeton and Northwestern maybe 10 years ago, the Gillens and Page study, that was an exhaustive study of American policy at the level of Congress. And what it documented in no uncertain terms is that the drivers of public policy are not public interest. It's really money. It's private money and powerful special interests. That's the way policy is made in this country. And, to my mind, it makes sense to really develop a systemic solution here. Because just putting AIPAC back in the box isn't going to do it. We also have the weapons industry, which is enormously powerful. I think even more powerful than AIPAC, because they control jobs all over the country. So, it's as simple as taking money out of politics, as closing the revolving door so that people don't rotate between corporations and our regulatory agencies, or government for that matter, closing the revolving door. And having publicly funded elections. These are not rocket science, and the American people is strongly committed to basic principles of democracy. And that's why these issues are kept off the table. So to my mind, this is all about getting to the microphone and being a part of the discussion in this election. And that's the reason that we are fighting to be on the ballot in every state. At this point, the press is trying to ignore us, the mainstream press. I think because we are a threat, because we're not a one-off, because we're not an independent, we are a real threat that has the capacity to get on the ballot and actually
challenge. This is not the first time you run. You feel like this time it's different.
Oh my God, it's so different. Yes. And, I'm really grateful that I've had a couple runs before. This is actually my third run. And it is so different. The mood of the American public is very different. I mean, people are not, tied up by old propaganda. And, public institutions have lost their credibility, for better and for worse. I think they've lost their credibility largely because they've lost their integrity. And, the stranglehold of big money has continued to reach out, now to our courts, to our regulatory system, elections across the board. Media has been so consolidated. It now is very much a tool of corporate America. So there's massive skepticism now, which is well documented in poll after poll, that the American people aren't buying it. They just don't buy the the hoax that's being perpetrated on us in really every dimension of our lives. People are extremely skeptical. And I don't think we can fix this without fixing the fundamental corruption of our political system and the power of money to rule the day and buy policy from the inside. So, Ralph Nader's been talking about this forever. He was a big wake-up moment for lots of us, including myself. And, that fight goes on, but I think it's become now common knowledge. And that's why he was fought tooth and nail, because he was speaking the truth, and he is still speaking the truth, and it becomes a bigger fight, a bigger and more powerful fight. And I think public consciousness is definitely in a very different and more empowered place than it's ever been before.
Jill, Rahma and I were talking about the complicity of legacy media in this current genocide that's going on. I just wanted you to expand a bit on what you just said about, legacy media not really sharing your campaign. Can you speak a bit more about that?
We had a handful of coverage by various outlets, including some, TV, cable, and print media and online initially. And then it all kind of shut down. It's like once our policies, once people recognized, oh my God, this is not business as usual.
Once you started to become effective.
So it was like, whoop, or, it may be that journalists would like to cover this, and then they're getting marching orders from on high that, no, you're not covering this. I mean, I can't tell you the number of interviews that I've done. And this is, over decades. I do a lot of interviews with really thoughtful journalists, and then they get totally quashed, thrown out, or journalists get fired. I mean, there was a day when I first started where journalists were getting fired if they were writing favorable or honest articles about our campaign. And, it would usually be young and idealistic journalists who then would disappear after they wrote a thoughtful article and got it printed. And this time around, it's mostly the media blackout. But, in a way, it's sort of like, who cares, because media, especially big legacy media, has really lost credibility, and they've kind of become, they're playing the role of public enemy. And, there was a study done a couple of years ago that showed among all the, developed countries, the US had the lowest public opinion of its media. And it was somewhere like in the teens. The teens are the low 20s, the favorability. So it's at rock bottom, and it's not such a terrible thing not to have the support of such a corrupt and ill-regarded institution. And you can look at what RFK did. He didn't get any favorable coverage whatsoever, and just worked with independent media. So I think there's proof of principle there that we don't have to rely on that, and we have other ways to get the word out.
Mary and I were so shocked when we were talking about the atrocities we're witnessing, and we were more shocked by sort of employees who can speak up, who are not really speaking up. But then we said, we can't really judge if they're worried about their jobs, they have mouths to feed. So it's best to focus on our own selves and what we ought to be doing. In your case, what is a thoughtful message? What is a message you truly believe in that you would send off to these employees who are scared to speak up, who want to speak up, but the intimidation is on such a high level?
I would really encourage people to look at the big picture, and to consider the trajectory of their own lives. It's very important that we be able to feed our families, but it's also very important that we have a world, which we can survive in, and which our children can survive in. And there gets to be a point where you have to draw the line and, be willing to walk away. Only individuals can say when they are at that point. And that's not to say everybody should cross that line, but that they want to be looking for opportunities to push the envelope in every way that they can. And we are seeing some journalists now, there are a tiny handful, you can count them on one hand, who are really trying to infuse truth into their messages. I don't want to identify them and put them at risk, but there are a couple of them that manage to write very truthful and positive stories about us. And, I would just encourage people to consider their own stakes in this discussion and their own stakes in democracy and the status of the press. We have to keep pushing. And along those lines, I'd really encourage people to stand up for Julian Assange, whose life is hanging in the balance, and along with his life now, is certainly the freedom of the press and the survival of our democracy. So there are many ways that people can push this envelope.
Right. And just ask yourself, what am I doing in this moment of history? Jill, I have a personal question, because you have been such a force, and you're so admired by many. And I think, we've been witnessing this genocide for several months with no sort of hope in sight. The ICJ judgment came out and then nothing happened. So people are getting tired, I feel. So my question to you, as much as you can share, what keeps you going? How do you, I know you're purpose driven, as am I, but we are also human. And I think, at least what I'm seeing within my community, people really are getting tired. They're getting tired of seeing the propaganda. They're tired of seeing the injustice. And also, I think there's a sense that there's so much work to do, and the odds are really against us because of the existing power structures. So what is it that keeps you going?
Well, I have to say I have a long view, because I've been involved in this for a while, and I've seen enormous transformational progress. I never would have dreamt that we would be where we are right now. And I really see this as a perfect storm. I think it's so important not to let the propaganda of powerlessness get under your skin, because that's what they're trying to do. They are trying to make you feel hopeless, because when you're hopeless, you are by definition powerless. You become powerless. But I would remind people, to paraphrase Alice Walker, the novelist and poet, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Don't let the propaganda get to you. And if one avenue isn't working, sometimes you have to shift your focus to a different avenue of struggle. But that doesn't mean you're giving up the struggle. And I would encourage people to hang in there on this genocide thing, because at the same time people are exhausted, they're also entirely losing their patience with the power structure. And whether there will be a general strike, whether there will be just some kind of massive uprising, or whether people are going to vote in ways they've never voted before. And that's what we're seeing right now. And for me, as a political animal, I got to be a political animal at the tender young age of 50, after everything else had failed. I was sort of in this as a health advocate, as a mother very concerned about the impact of the environment on the health of our kids and that whole generation. So that's what got me very up to my eyeballs in activism. And like, I would move from one issue to another. It was like, oh, let's try healthcare as a human right. And then that gets slammed by the power of the money, even though we had all the makings of a transformational referendum. It got beat back at the last minute by huge false advertising, or it was getting money out of politics. We passed that in my home state by referendum, by a 2-to-1 margin. It was huge. And then the progressive Democrats repealed it on a voice vote here in my home state and put the money back into our elections. We had passed the Clean Elections Law, which was going to just open up a whole new direction in politics. And I myself have kind of moved from one area of struggle to another, thinking, oh, maybe it'll be better here. But I think it's really important to just see the arc of history here. And it is bending. It is bending in a very big way. And it's not bending in a way that's easy. But for example, just to look at the status of the American empire, it is teetering at the brink right now. It's essentially over. The rest of the world has recognized that now. And, within the BRICS, there's now a bigger GDP than there is, in the US NATO alliance. And there's a major, major power shift. We've been driving Russia and China together, which is a very powerful force. I mean, I'm not, you cannot be happy about the friction in this realignment, but there's a huge realignment that is taking place. The overarching policy and the commitment of the American empire, at least since the 1990s with the fall of the old Soviet Union, has been something called full spectrum dominance, which may be a term you may or may not be familiar with, but this was basically leaked by the New York Times way back in 1990, that this was the new policy going forward. And it really wasn't even so new then, but it was explicit. They said the quiet part out loud. The US will dominate all spheres, economic, military, and all potential battle spaces in that military conflict. We will dominate them all worldwide, and we will suppress and crush any rising power that even attempts to rise on a regional basis. So we've had this very firm stranglehold on the economies and the military forces around the world. We've had an extremely domineering approach, as we've seen in these 72 or so regime change interventions. That doesn't even count our wars. Look at our wars. I mean, we've lost every major war since.
And this is one of the things. This is one of the things that's so mind-boggling. The drainage of all these wars, and now you're about to get into another one.
It's absolutely mind-boggling, and you can only defy the laws of physics for so long,
Exactly.
And that's why the American public, really is rousing, and especially the younger generation. There's no coming back here. They really get it, and they are furious about student debt, which has denied them a future, and they are also furious about the militarism and the genocide, and they're not going to take it on any count. And we need to just operate on that basis and not let the predator state try to distract us with, with other things that, like UNRWA. They've created a crisis around UNRWA to distract from the genocide and the ICJ ruling. So, we just need to keep our eyes on the prize and keep going and recognize that we do have the power to, to take back our future and create the world that we deserve.
I was going to ask, so I'll ask on behalf of Rahma and Ari. So we are not Americans. So how can we support you?
I'd say you can talk to your friends. You certainly have networks, sure. And you can talk to your friends and, encourage people to, all Americans to just stand up with the courage of their convictions and make this happen. For people to know how much power we have right now. There are several independent candidates, including RFK, but we are the only campaign that is on track to be on the ballot across the country. We are currently...
How many states is it now?
Well, it's 21, but it's actually much bigger than the number represents, because we have almost all of the big and difficult states. Extremely.
And bear in mind that all of this, and you're not getting the same funding as the other politicians. You're not getting the same media coverage. Imagine with the media coverage and with the funding, where you would be.
Exactly.
It's just really important to note this, because once you start having the right conversations, being the right kind of effective leader, this is when they try and shun you.
Exactly. And in the words attributed to Gandhi, although he may not have originated this, but it's the saying: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And I think the resistance and the media blackout around our campaign is a badge of honor. And people should recognize how powerful we are. Don't listen to these talking heads, to this old white guy behind the curtain who's trying to tell you that he's in charge, but he's like the Wizard of Oz. He's just, pulling bells and whistles. It's not him, it is us. We are in charge. And it's really important for us to act strategically. I'd encourage people to go to, for you to spread the word, tell people to go to JillStein2024.com and to lend a hand, to support, to contribute, because we are going full tilt now. We are carrying petitions in 16 states going on 20, in addition to the 21 that we already have. And the sooner we are on the ballot in all states, and the other independents are on one or two. We're on 21, including all the big ones. RFK says he's got to raise $20 million to get on the ballot. We're on the ballot because we have a grassroots committed network that's been working on this for a long time.
Never underestimate the grassroots. Never.
What's that?
Never underestimate the grassroots.
Yes, exactly. We do have the power, and it's just important for us to know that and to proceed recognizing that we are in this perfect storm right now. And it's, we not only have the capacity, but we have the responsibility, no pressure, but it ain't going to get fixed if it's not us. And our campaign is the only shot at a pro-worker, anti-war, climate emergency, and anti-genocide campaign. We will be the one, and there will be at least 3, maybe 4 corporate options that don't support any of those things. So there is easily a scenario by which they are splitting the corporate vote, and we are mobilizing and are the only campaign on the ballot that people can vote for across most of the country. So this could be a very unifying and empowering moment for a vision for people, planet, and peace over profit.
Jill, you are incredible. Thank you so much for coming on this show. Your campaign is doing an incredible job. We will put the link that you just mentioned in your bio so people can go on and support. Keep up the great work. We are with you all the way.
Thank you so much, Mary and
Thank you,
Rahman.
Jill.
It's been a real honor to speak with you. Take care.
Thank
All
you. Thank
best.
you for your time. Well, that's it for this week's Realpolitik show. Huge thanks to my co-host Rahma Zain and our fantastic guests. Be sure to join us in the coming weeks as we've more globally renowned guests set to appear on the show, as well as another US presidential candidate, their identity to be revealed soon on the Realpolitik website. We'll also be talking to politically inclined stars from the worlds of theater, music, and sport. Okay, in the year of the 2024 presidential elections, we thought we'd leave you with an exclusive behind-the-scenes insight into the extraordinary attention to detail that ensures the smooth running of the White House, home, of course, to the leader of the free world. Thanks for watching and see you soon.
On Tuesday, you have a very big day, so it'll be interesting to see.
Right, this is important, okay? This might be the most important thing you've ever said, so just reassure the public, but don't lie.
A lot of people are getting better.
No, they're not.
They're doing very well. All of them are doing well.
No, you're doing that thing where you exaggerate every time you open your mouth, so stop doing that.
Everybody that we see is getting better.
You've not seen anyone. You wouldn't go near a sufferer, even if they had access to the dressing room of a teenage beauty pageant.
Much lower number. They're in good shape. Most of them are in really good shape.
Stop exaggerating.
So they're getting better very rapidly.
Look, you're going to have to move on before you start giving them a clean bill of health and claiming that they can now lift a dishwasher over their heads.
And people are getting better.
Look, this is just not true. One of the people is very sick. I don't know where you're getting this information from.
One of the people is...
No, don't say that to them. I was just talking to you, you boiled egg.
She's very sick, but she's
Hopefully getting better.
hopefully getting better.
Oh, God, I should have trained you like my dog.
And a lot of things are happening.
We're very well organised.
We're very well organized.
We have great talent,
We have great talent.
great doctors,
Great doctors.
great...
Great everyone. There's tremendous spirit.
We're ordering a lot of supplies.
We're ordering a lot of supplies. We're ordering a lot of
Supplies. No,
a lot of
why did you say it again? A lot of,
we're ordering a lot of different
elements of medical.
elements of medical. We are
Elements of medical.
getting some very good results. As you know, they're working as rapidly as they can
Elements of medical.
for the future.
Elements of medical.
Elements of medical.
Elements of medical.
Elements of medical.